guide me, teach me, and keep me. Amen. Lord, take me where you would have me go to do what you have called me to do. Amen. Regardless of whose heart is in it and whose heart is not. Regardless of who shows up and who shows up not. Give to me where you would have me go and do what it is you would have me do. Amen. Amen. Using for a theological theme as we continue in chapter 9, God's warning. God's warning. And we find that Israel was instructed to rejoice not like other people, for they have been in an unfaithful way to God. They had gone a-whoring from God. Their crops and their plenty would not feed them. They shall not dwell in the Lord's land. They shall not offer wine offerings to the Lord. If the Lord cut them off and cut off their solemn days and their feast days, what would they do? They are gone. They have left because of destruction. What they have done unto themselves. But the days of punishment are come. There were some who held to God, but the majority of the people held not and had gone a-whoring. They had deeply corrupted themselves. And it was compared to a tragic incident that happened in Gilead. They had once worshiped God, still having their plenty and mingling with other people who knew not or sought not their God, or sought not God. They picked up their ways. You have to be careful who you hang around and who you want to mimic, who you want to be like. If God, the Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is not in it, the God of the Gentiles, if he's not in it, leave it alone. Don't follow the ways of those people that worship things that they fashion with their hands, or things that someone else has fashioned with their hands and presented before them. Don't do it. You will find yourself all alone without God's guidance and without His protection. Hosea chapter 9, verse 10. I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as the first ripe in the fig tree at her first time, but they went to Baal Peor and separated themselves unto that shame, and their abominations were according as they loved. God said He's given to us understanding In the beginning, when he called them, he found them like grapes in the wilderness, like a traveler traveling in the wilderness, needing refreshment, finding grapes, a patch of grapes to eat and soothe himself. He said, that's how they were a delight to me. He said, I saw your fathers as the first ripe in a fig tree at her first time. The fig tree is a delicacy in the East, and they like the figs the way that they prepare them. Especially a young fig tree that's budding for the first time. That's a reference to their rising prosperity under God. That's the way they were at first. But they went to Baal Peor and separated themselves unto that shame. When they traveled and went from place to place, they started to pick up the ways of the world and started to distance themselves from God. He said, I saw your fathers as the first ripe. And their abominations, their evil deeds were according as they loved. They became as evil as their sins. Not only did they commit these acts, but they were committed to committing the acts against God. They were committed. They were headstrong in doing so. Committed to sin. No longer committed to God, but committed to sin. And we find it's a result in a large part of the leaders, the religious leaders, the civil leaders, the political leaders. Be careful about your leaders. Be careful about who you put in office. Be careful about who you follow. As for Ephraim, their glory shall fly away like a bird from the birth and from the womb and from the conception. We find that the glory of Ephraim was their children. So God said, as far as Ephraim, their glory, their children shall fly away like a bird, or their children shall cease. He's going to cut off the line. That's how bad the sins were. He's going to cut off the line in great numbers. In a great part, he's going to cut it off. If the child is being born, he's going to snuff out the life. If the child is in the womb, he's going to snuff out the life. If the child has been conceived, he's going to snuff out the conception. He's going to cut off the line. That's how bad the sins have become. Though they bring up their children, yet I will bereave them, that there shall not be a man left. Yes, woe also to them when I depart from them. That's how bad their sins were. He said, though they bring up their children, yet I will bereave them. I will take even them. The ones that they have, he said, I'll cut them off too. Wow. That's how bad their sins had become. How did they get to that point to where in previous years and generations and generations and generations, they followed the Lord, but they get down to the children of Israel, and the children of Israel get so far away from God? He said, I'll bereave them of the ones that they have, that there shall not be one left. And woe also to them when I leave them. He said, I'm going to cut the blessings, I'm going to cut the protection. But notice he still allowed them to live, giving them that grand privilege and opportunity to turn away from their whoredoms. Ephraim, as I saw Tyrus, is planted in a pleasant place. Tyre was situated, if I'm remembering correctly in history, Tyre was situated on the seashore. And Ephraim was situated on a mountain and they bordered each other. He said, Ephraim, as I saw Tyrus, is planted in a pleasant place. They were in a good place, a place that was prosperous to them. He said, but Ephraim shall bring forth his children to the murderer. He's letting them know Tyre won't be able to help you. Even though they are bordered with you, they won't be able to help you. And Ephraim is going to lead his children, lead the tribe to the murderers. Lead the tribe to those who's going to take them into captivity. Lead the tribe to those who's going to kill them. Wow. See, God's hand of protection protects you from those type of things. Gives you a right mind and a right frame of heart. And with that, He's with you. He will not allow these things to come. Oh yeah, people are going to die, people are going to be killed, they're going to be murdered, so forth and so on. But it won't be as a nation. Because you're going to always have wickedness within a nation. But then He can stop that too, if He chose to. But He's not going to go back on His word, because He said in the beginning that He was going to give us free will, and we have it. We can do good with it or we can do evil with it. But whatever we do with it, there are consequences to your decisions. People always wonder, why does God allow this to happen, this, and why does God allow? Because He's not going back on His word for you. It don't matter whether you understand it or not. Yes, it does matter. However, if you choose not to understand it, it doesn't matter. He made us to be, in a sense, like Him, having free will and dominion over some things. Then we wonder, why does He allow this? Why does He allow that? Well, why do you do what you do? That should be what you ask yourself. Have you examined yourself lately? Then in verse 14, look at this. It reads, give them, O Lord. Then He stopped and said, what wilt thou give? Then He came back and said with the answer, give them a miscarrying womb and dry breast. It seems as though Hosea was going to petition to the Lord to give the nation something. He said, give them, O Lord, and then he stopped. And then apparently he thought about it and said, what will thou give? them. And then the Lord gave him the answer. I'm going to give them a miscarrying womb and dry breast. He said, I'm cutting off the line. He said, I'm cutting off most of the line of Ephraim. I'm cutting it off. He said, all their wickedness is in Gilgal. For there I hated them. For the wickedness of their doings I will drive them out of mine house. I will love them no more. All their princes are revolters. Now, we know that that's the way it was translated in this English version, because we've never seen where God said he hated his creation. And we've never seen where God said in a literal sense that he did not love his creation. But that's the way it was translated, so we have to go to the original text to see what he's talking about. He said, all their wickedness is in Gilgal. Gilgal is a place where they rejected God and chose Saul as a king. He said, that's where it started. When you started rejecting me, it's when you start having your issues. And because we worship God, the little worship that we give him, and things come our way, we always have a tendency to say, why me? Well, examine yourself and see what you have done. See how you are living. See how you are abiding. And if you're abiding well in God's will, so mote it be. Then that could mean that he's bragging on you and saying, have you tried my servant? And put your name in it. See, we don't know why things come our way. But we do know this. We're not in heaven. We're not at home. So as travelers, things come your way. He said all their wickedness started when they rejected me and they wanted a man to lead them. He said, for there I hated their sin. For the wickedness of their doings, I will drive them out of mine house. They won't be able to worship in the temple. I will love them no more, or I will bear them no longer, is what we find the meaning being in the original text. He said, I won't bear them any longer. Look how far back God was referring to. Took them all the way back to the first king. Said, and since that time you've just grown further and further away from me. You've gone a whoring from your God. He said, and your princes, those leaders, are the ones that are revolting or rebelling against me, and y'all are following them, is what we find the meaning to be. See, it seems to be a recurring cycle. The people go astray, then they follow, and then the leaders follow the people. Well, first of all, the leaders go astray, and then the people follow the leaders. Then the people start to get worse, and the leaders seem to follow the people. So what does that tell you? They become one in mind. You have to be careful about who your leaders are, and you have to be careful about who you follow. Only thing I can say is this: follow God always. Yes, you're going to make mistakes. Yes, you're going to sin daily. Yes, you're going to mess up. But don't stay where you are. Don't wallow in the sin like a pig in slop, like a pig in mud. Don't just enjoy it. Don't just live in it and make it your primary way of life. Get up, turn yourself around, and keep going. And when you stumble again, do it again and keep petitioning the Lord. And you'll find that it will become less and less and less and less. Verse 16, Ephraim is smitten, their root is dried up, they shall bear no fruit. Yes, though they bring forth, yet I will slay even the beloved fruit of their womb. Wow. He said, I'm going. That's the third or fourth time minimum that he's let them know, I'm going to cut you off. For the most part, I'm going to cut you off. He said, Ephraim is smitten. When I move my hand, then things come. They are smitten. Their fruit is dried up, and they shall bear no fruit. The root, notice, we find that the root of the fruit is dried up. See, if the root lives, then the fruit can come back. But if the root is dried up, all is lost. He said, and even though they bring forth, I will slay the beloved fruit of their womb. I'm going to cut off their generation. Wow. Woo. That's some serious stuff there. Verse 17 in our last verse. My God will cast them away because they did not hearken unto him, and they shall be wanderers among the nations. Now, when we find that they went out to Baal Peor and they separated themselves to that shame, and they were committed to those abominations, we find that they were mimicking the Moabites. And the Moabite idol in whose worship women prostituted themselves. How do you have a worship service and the women are prostituting themselves and they call that worship? That's some of the things that was going on in Baal Peor. Now, how is it that if the prostitutes bear fruit, you give that fruit unto the Lord? When in the worship service, you're going in the mindset of the Moabites and worshiping and having prostitution going on during the worship service. He said, oh no, you can't worship in my temple any longer. He cut them off. He cut them off. He even cut them out of the temple. My God, 17, my God will cast them away because they did not hearken unto him. Hosea is saying, God is going to cast y'all away. Do y'all not see? Why is it that the majority of the people are not repenting and turning from their ways? Y'all know that we don't do what the Moabites are doing. What is up with that? He said, my God will cast them away. Notice he's talking about the ones that's participating in that. Will cast them away because they did not hearken unto him. They did not listen to God when God told them generation after generation after generation after generations to turn and change their ways. He said, and they shall be wanderers among the nations. There are some Ephraimites that have wandered throughout the world that don't even know that they're Ephraimites. They don't even know the lineage. because it was cut off and records were not kept. And God said, they shall be wanderers among the nations. When you do your history search, you'll find some thinking that some of them might be the native people, part of the native people of the Americas, being the Indians. Some of them. Wow, that's how far and widespread that they are, because they have found in some of the Indian festivals, they have words close to Yehovah, and they have in some of their festivals, it mimics the Israelite worship. That's how some of the commentators are saying, wait a minute, look at what they're doing here, and that's been passed down. Are they or are they not part of the Ephraimites? We don't know. We don't know. But you'll find that when you do your study and your history search. Heed to God's warning. Don't stay where you are when you're outside of the will of God. Don't stay there. If you find yourself there, get out. Get out. The doors of the church are open.